All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Have you ever actually stopped to think about those catchy little phrases we toss around every single day? The proverbs and idioms we just sort of blindly accept as universal truths? Well, today we are taking a critical look at these so called words of wisdom and dismantling them one by one. We're going to flip the script on conventional thinking and see what happens when we look at these cliches through the lens of harsh, practical reality. So let's start with a really big one. Is failure actually the mother of success? We've all heard this comforting proverb, especially right after we've messed something up. I mean, it's designed to encourage us, to make us feel like failing is just this completely necessary stepping stone. But let's take a second to question if there's actually any real logic behind it. Because honestly, when you dig a little deeper, the entire foundation of this saying just starts to crumble. Section 1. Rethinking Success and Failure. Take Thomas Edison, for example. He supposedly said, "Who says I failed? I already know 9,900 ways that won't work." It is a beautifully inspiring quote, right? But it makes us mistakenly believe his ultimate success was entirely due to his failures. We romanticize the struggle so much that we forget. Well, actually, scratch that. We completely ignore what was actually keeping him going in the first place. Look at it from the perspective of probability theory. The reality is that success actually breeds success, and failure breeds failure. Think about Edison. Without his multiple early successes in life and the massive confidence he gained from those wins, he undoubtedly would have given up. It is those little victories that build the momentum you need to push through obstacles. Most successful people build on a solid foundation of wins, not an endless string of defeats. Section 2. The Illusions of Love. Okay, so we have this deeply ingrained myth that true lovers eventually become a married couple. But the reality is that it's incredibly difficult for passionate lovers to successfully transition into a lifelong partnership. Ask yourself honestly if you and your romantic ideal have actually managed to build a lifelong, frictionless connection. Because the idea that all married couples are just permanently affectionate lovers, it's a complete illusion. The crucial point here is that if lovers do manage to get married, the everyday grind often results in the drowning of that initial fiery affection. By forcing this idealized poetic romance into the highly practical, mundane constraints of a marriage, we often end up destroying the very affection the relationship was built upon. Reality, unfortunately, tends to be a bit of a wet blanket on unchecked romance. Section 3. Redefining Wisdom and Truth. There's that old saying that wisdom comes from experience. But relying solely on personal experience is actually pretty foolish. Life is short and time flies. Must we experience absolutely everything ourselves to gain wisdom? The answer is a hard no. To truly be wise, we must cleverly use others' experiences and lessons. It's wildly inefficient to insist on making every single mistake ourselves when we can just apply the hard-earned lessons of others to our own situations. And hey, we've all heard the proverb, the only way to catch tiger cubs is to go into the tiger's den. But think about the world we live in. With spy satellites, interconnected computers, and instantaneous global communication, do we still need to literally risk our lives diving into the den? The world situation can now be observed safely from afar, in an instant. Sometimes the bold old way is quite simply the stupid way. And what about the phrase, truth lies in the coffin? It's this idea that death finally brings clarity and final judgment. The reality? People will endlessly review and debate history from thousands of years ago anyway. The idea that truth is magically sealed when the coffin closes completely misses the mark. Instead, we should just follow our own path, our Tao, and simply not care about the content of our eulogy. Section 4. Human Nature Unfiltered. Take the old adage, live and work in peace and contentment. I mean, it almost sounds like peace comes first and then work. But without a job, how can one actually live in peace? Like, are pies just going to fall from the sky? The proverb really has it backward. Young people today are absolutely correct to start their careers first, to secure their survival, and then earn their peace. You've got to secure your foundation before you can go out and find your zen. Human behavior constantly defies our expectations of good and bad influences, doesn't it? The myth says, associate with the wise and you become wise. But reality shows us that nuns in quiet cloisters might dream of having a drink, while those in the roughest trades yearn to cultivate virtue. We think, associate with the foolish and you become foolish, yet history shows corrupt officials completely surrounding the so-called wise emperors, while incredibly strict codes of justice often exist among gangsters. Human nature is just endlessly contradictory. Section 5, flipping the script. Okay, take this one. Steel is refined through 100 trials. It's supposed to mean that enduring hardship makes you stronger. But try it. Literally. After 100 attempts of pure heat and pressure, is it going to become stronger steel, or will it just evaporate into gas? This sarcastic little question proves that blind repetition of hardship without logic or care leads to destruction, not refinement. Sometimes, suffering is really just suffering. Or how about the incredibly poetic phrase, better to be a shattered jade than an intact tile? It's this dramatic call for glorious sacrifice over mundane survival. But in reality, it is much, much better to be an intact, useful tile than a totally useless, shattered piece of jade. Sometimes basic self-preservation and everyday utility are far more logical and honestly far more valuable than some beautiful, dramatic destruction. Now, here is one we hear constantly. Listen to both sides and you will be enlightened. Heeding only one side definitely leads to darkness, sure, but listening to both sides, that often just leads to more darkness and confusion. Merely taking in conflicting information doesn't magically guarantee you're going to find the light of truth. You need independent critical thinking, not just a balanced diet of noise. Think about some of the most common everyday sayings. A newborn calf is not afraid of tigers. Well, the reality is a newborn tiger is actually most afraid of cows. We constantly say, the viewer sees better than those involved. But anyone who has actually been in the arena knows that the people involved see the truth, while the outside viewer is usually just totally confused. And a broken mirror can be put together again? Let's be real here. It is incredibly hard to mend a broken mirror, and it's absolutely never exactly the same. Let's build on this a little bit. It's actually kind of fascinating how quickly reality exposes the selfish, monetary, and fame-driven behaviors that Proverbs actively try to hide from us. Time reveals a heart. Actually, throwing money into the mix reveals a heart much faster. We say people fear fame as pigs fear fattening. But come on, people want fame as desperately as pigs want to grow fat. And youth is wasted on the young? Try telling that to a business owner. The harsh reality is often that young workers don't work hard and the bosses suffer. And for our final rapid-fire flips, 3 shoemakers surpass Zhuge Liang, who, by the way, was a famous genius? No, 3 shoemakers are still just 3 shoemakers. Quantity simply does not equal quality. Traveling 1,000 miles is better than reading Russia? Absolute nonsense. One focused year of reading easily beats 1,000 miles of aimless wandering. And finally, if you don't listen to the old man, suffering is in front of you. The flip truth? If you blindly only listen to the old man and ignore the changing times, suffering absolutely lies ahead. So the crucial takeaway here is this. After seeing conventional wisdom flipped on its head like this, which other everyday idioms have you been blindly following? I really hope this explainer has encouraged you to stop accepting these catchy phrases as universal truths. It is time to start critically examining the beliefs that guide your life. Because when you strip away the comforting cliches, you might just find a much sharper, much more useful reality underneath it all. Keep questioning the script, and I'll see you in the next one.